Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Certainly Allah's deen is Islam. 3. 19. What is Islam? Translation of Islam Kiya Hai? What did Allah say? The Quranic perspective. Ghulam Ahmed Parwez 1964. Talui Islam Trust. Registered. 25B, Gulberg 2, Lahore. 16 Relative values. So far, we have written about those values which have a permanent status. Let us once again examine an example previously quoted in which we saw wealth is also a value, but when a clash occurs between wealth and life, then wealth can be sacrificed for the sake of life. In fact, it becomes necessary to do so. Similarly, when there is a clash between life and dignity, then to protect dignity it becomes necessary to sacrifice life. This means that wealth and life are relative values, whereas dignity is a permanent value. Apart from permanent values, the Quran has also mentioned relative values. 16.1 Love for spouse and progeny. For example, in Surah Al-Imran the Quran has stated, "Fair in the eyes of men is the love of things they covet. Women and sons. Heaped up hoards of gold and silver. Horses branded." 3. 14. This means that though these things have an inherent value, instances can occur when these material possessions and offspring can themselves become a cause for the disintegration of man. The Quran states, "And know you that your possessions and your progeny are but a trial." 8. 28. This happens when material possessions and children are on one side and the values which are higher than them are on the other side. At this juncture, if a man sacrifices some higher value for the protection of his material possessions or offspring, then these things, wealth, offspring, wife, etc., become the cause for his destruction and become his enemy. The Quran states, "Truly, among your wives and your children are some that are enemies to yourselves." 64. 14. This is the reason that in the verse of Surah Al-Imran in which wife, children, and wealth have been declared as a reason for attraction, it is also stated, "Such are the possessions of this world's life. But in nearness to Allah is the best of the goals." 3. 14. These are the chattels for the physical life of man. If at some point a clash occurs between this and the real life of man, which is the life of the self, then it should be understood at that juncture that the importance and value of the human self is far greater. Say, "Shall I give you glad tidings of things far better than those?" 3. 15. The individual who does not have Iman in this reality gives priority to the love of wealth over these higher values. And violent is he in his love of wealth. 100. 8. 16.2 Love of wealth. But the one who has Iman in the higher values, despite having love for wealth, gives it for the welfare of mankind. To spend of your substance, out of love for him, for your kin, for orphans, for the needy, for the wayfarer, for those who ask. 2. 177. In Surah Al-Tawbah, where the contrast between lower values and higher values has been laid bare, it is stated, "Say, if it be that your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your mates, or your kindred, the wealth that you have gained, the commerce in which you fear a decline, or the dwellings in which you delight, are dearer to you than Allah, or His Messenger, or the striving in His cause, then wait until Allah brings about His decision. And Allah guides not the rebellious." 9. 24. In view of the importance of material possessions, the Quran has proposed punishment for a thief. 5. 38. It has also been forbidden to devour one another's possessions through cheating. 4. 29. And getting work done through bribes has also been strictly forbidden. 2. 188. In other words, not only is there permission to earn wealth through legitimate means and to take care of it, but there is instruction to do so. But on the other hand, When a need arises for this same wealth to be used for the protection of a permanent value, then it has been directed to give away all that wealth which is beyond one's need. 2. 219. 16.3 Value of life. According to the Quran, human life is of far higher value than wealth. Its importance and value can be judged from this when the Quran states, "If anyone slew a person, unless it be for murder or for spreading mischief in the land, it would be as if he slew the whole of mankind. And if anyone saved a life, it would be as if he saved the life of the whole of mankind." 5. 32. But if an individual murders an innocent man or turns the peace of a good society into mayhem, then his punishment is proposed as being the death penalty. Hence in the verse quoted above these words are also included i.e. unless it be for murder or for spreading mischief in the land. In another verse, this is called the taking of life bil haqq. In truth, nor take life, which Allah has made sacred, except for just cause. 17. 33. Haqq means to give the death penalty to a murderer or the one who causes tumult and terror in society in consequence of his crime. In view of the importance of the value of life, it has been strictly declared that no such step should be taken as a result of which a human being is killed. And make not your own hands contribute to your destruction. 2. 195. In the same way that this order is applicable collectively, it is also applicable individually. Therefore, the protection of your own life is extremely important. In another verse, it is stated, "Nor kill or destroy yourselves." 4. 29. Whereas this means do not kill your own people, it also means do not kill your own self. The charge that the Quran has levied against the Jews for their crime also includes that they used to kill their own people and turn them out of their homes. 2. 85. From these explanations, it becomes clear what the importance is of human life according to the Quran. But when it becomes necessary to lay down one's life to defend the permanent values, then those who step forward willingly and happily, offering their life held out in the palms of their hands and sacrifice their lives happily, they are declared to be the holders of the highest of ranks. So much so, that it has been stated regarding this not to call them dead. And say not of those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead. Nay, they are living, though you perceive it not. 2. 154. They are alive, but you cannot comprehend this at the present level of your consciousness. It is obvious from this that despite being so precious, life is still a relative value. If a clash occurs between this and the protection of a permanent value, then giving your life for the protection of a permanent value is part of human eminence. This is what is meant by laying down of life for dignity. 16.4 Protection of crops and cattle. The Quran has declared that individual, nation or system who destroys crops and cattle, as the worst of criminals. When he turns his back, his aim everywhere is to spread mischief through the earth and destroy crops and cattle. But Allah loves not mischief. 2. 205. But when a nation is bent upon tyranny and destruction and there is no alternative except war to stop them in their path of destroying humanity, permission is given in this situation to go to war against them. To those against whom war is made, permission is given to fight because they have been wronged, and verily, Allah is most powerful for their aid. 22. 39. It is evident that in war, despite thousands of precautions, there will necessarily be destruction of crops and cattle, so halting of tyranny is such an obligation for which the sacrifice of something of lower value is permitted. About war itself, the Quran has declared it to be legitimate up to the time that, until the war lays down its burdens. 47. 4. In other words, permission for war has been given to end the existence of war from the world. 16.5 Fulfilling commitments. the Quran has given the fulfilling of agreements great importance. It states that the characteristic of mu'minin is to fulfill the contracts which you have made. 2. 177. This means that an agreement or contract is such a value which must be respected. But if there is fear of an agreement being broken, then this agreement can be returned to the nation with whom it has been made. If you fear treachery from any group, throw back their covenant to them, on equal terms. 8. 58. It should be made clear that the Quran has not given permission to break an agreement unilaterally. What has been said here is that if there is fear of a nation breaking an agreement, then say to them that after this an agreement between you and us will not remain. In this way, when both of you come to the same level after the dissolution of an agreement, then you can take a further step. If we look at it from this viewpoint, then respect for an agreement does not remain a relative value but becomes a permanent value. This is because the Quran has not given permission for the breaking of an agreement under any circumstances. In the case of treachery by the nation with whom an agreement is made, permission is given to revoke the agreement. After this, if any step is taken against this nation, then it will not be a step against the agreement but instead will be a step against a nation with whom you have no agreement. It is evident that at the time of making an agreement with another nation, it will be made clear under what circumstances this agreement can be considered to be void. Other than flouting agreements, the Quran also strongly forbids the use of agreements as a tool to carry out deception. In Surah Al-Nahl it is stated, "Nor take your oaths to practice deception between yourselves, lest one party should be more numerous than another." 16:92. And then it is stated, "And take not your oaths to practice deception between yourselves with the result that someone's foot may slip after it was firmly planted. And you may have to taste the evil consequences of having hindered men from the path of Allah." 16:94. From this it is evident that strict admonition has been given regarding the fulfilling of commitments. If we look at it from this respect, then the honoring of agreements is a permanent value, but because in the event of the opposing party flouting an agreement there is consequently permission to dissolve the agreement. We have therefore included this under the section on relative values. This difference can be understood as follows. For example, doing justice is a permanent value. It is not conditional on this, that as long as the opposing party does justice, you too do justice, and when it abandons justice, then you resort to injustice. Whether the opposite side does justice or not, you simply cannot lift your hand away from justice. But in the case of fulfilling an agreement, this is conditional on the opposite side remaining committed to the agreement. If they do not remain committed, then you too cannot be forced to remain committed to it. It is only due to this much difference that it is noted under the relative values, otherwise it too is a permanent value. These are brief summaries of a few relative values which under normal circumstances it is essential to respect but which can be sacrificed for the protection of a higher value than these. By paying further attention to the Quran, this list of relative values can be increased. The Quran has clearly differentiated the mutual link between the permanent values and the relative values, and that in the case of any clash between them the latter should be sacrificed for the sake of the former. This concept has been illustrated very comprehensively through the following verse of Surah Al-Tawbah, which has already been quoted and which we feel it is necessary to repeat again at the end. Say, if it be that your fathers, your sons, your brothers, your mates, or your kindred, the wealth that you have gained, the commerce in which you fear a decline, or the dwellings in which you delight, are dearer to you than Allah, or His Messenger, or the striving in His cause, then wait until Allah brings about His decision. And Allah guides not the rebellious. 9:24. The correct path of life is that everything should be kept in its correct position. And whenever there is a clash between a lower and a higher value, then the lower value should be sacrificed for the sake of the higher value. It is this system of life which is called Islam. In other words, these are those permanent values which are declared to have the status of fundamental human rights in political language. Page break. 17 Woman. In the world, no animal has done to his partner what man has done to his companion in life. Among animals, other than this physical trait which has been specified by nature for the female, there is no difference or superiority in male and female. But the gulf of mutual difference between man and woman is so wide and deep that it appears as if they belong to two different species. This mutual difference of theirs is not created by nature but is created by man himself, and its foundation has been laid by the hands of man himself. According to the program of nature, amongst all animals the birth of a human child and its period of upbringing, which starts from conception, is the longest of all. During this period, for a time woman is nearly unable to carry out the normal business of life, and during the rest of the time so busy that she has little time for normal duties and occupations. Man is free and unhindered from all these duties and engagements. Therefore, according to the principle of division of labor, he earns sustenance and is responsible for meeting the needs of woman. 4. 34. 17.1 Is woman lesser than man? Nature defined this program for the reproduction and training of human progeny, but man took unfair advantage of this constraint and feature of woman. And as happens with every indigent, he made her his subject and slave. In order to make the chains of slavery stronger, it is necessary that this belief is embedded into the heart of the subject that he is inferior to the ruler and master, and that nature has indeed created him solely for this purpose of obedience and compliance. To achieve this purpose, religion, i.e., the self-devised religion of men, is a very effective instrument. Hence in this domain also, man thrust forward the agenda of religion, and he began to make this belief widespread that the status of woman is grossly inferior compared to man. She is the source of all troubles and the originator of sins. She has faulty intellect and she should always remain obedient to man. Therefore, if you pick up the Bible and look, you will find these beliefs to be common in it, according to which God created man, Adam, with his own hands. And when he, Adam, began to be continuously sad due to loneliness, woman, Eve, was created from his rib, in order to provide him with company for his pleasure. In other words, the sole aim was the creation of man, and woman was merely created as a toy to entertain man. Satan misguided woman, and because of this Adam had to leave paradise. As punishment therefore for this crime of woman, God made the decision that she should give birth to children through the pains of labor, and her children should enter this world laden with the burden of sins and live with trials and tribulations. 17.2 Christianity and woman. In the Christian Church, this issue remained under discussion for a while as to whether woman even has a soul or not. As far as woman's nature is concerned, it was said regarding this that since she is created from the rib of Adam, she is therefore crooked like the rib. If we wish to straighten it, it will break but will not straighten. These beliefs about woman are not specifically confined to Christianity. Nearly every religion of the world has given woman a similar position. She is created for man, therefore she has to abide by the will of man. In a society, she holds no status in her own right, so much so that even her introduction is not done through her own self. She is introduced as the daughter of Zayd, the wife of Bakr, or the mother of Omer. She can neither be the owner of any property, nor has she any authority in the income of man. She cannot receive anything from the inheritance or wealth of her father, husband, or son as a right. If she is given anything, then it will be in the form of charity. Kanyadan is an established part of Hindu society. According to this religion, she cannot select her own husband. Her father can hand her over to anyone he wishes. In fact, this is even necessary that she should be married off before she reaches adulthood. This marriage will be a permanent tie which can never be broken. Even after the death of her husband, this woman will remain his wife. She will either need to burn to death on her husband's funeral pyre or spend her whole life as a widow. These beliefs about woman have continued throughout the centuries and are prevalent in nearly every part of the world. Or it can be said that they were prevalent until recent times. The consequence of this was that woman herself began to realize that she has no position of her own in the world. She is only created for man. The purpose of her life is to satisfy the sexual desires of man and to become the means of producing his progeny. 17.3 European woman. How deeply this belief about her own self has reached the heart of woman can be seen from the fact that the Western woman considers herself to be completely free. Her belief is that she does not lag behind man in any field, and she is not subservient to man. She rebels against every belief which contains any iota of the suggestion that she is inferior to man. But despite this, her extreme endeavor is that somehow or other she should become an object of attraction in the eyes of men. All her material for adornment and beautification. Her efforts to promote her beauty and various techniques to exhibit her figure. Her manner of speech. Her way of walking. The design and embellishment of her apparel. Behind her every movement and appearance this motive is functioning that she should become as attractive as possible in the eyes of man. You can see that despite rebelling against man and being apparently free, this belief is still ingrained in the depths of her heart that she is created for man. In fact, in this respect woman of the age of ignorance was smarter than the daughter of modern civilization. Even if she became the means of satisfying the desires of man, at least she was free from the trouble of earning a living. Now she earns herself and spends the majority of her earnings to become the toy of man. She makes full effort that somehow or other she remains trapped as prey in the eyes of man, and despite this keeps herself under this illusion that she is free from the grip of man. All this is the unconscious influence of that doctrine and belief which is rooted in the heart and veins of woman for thousands of years. 17.4 Revolutionary Proclamation of the Quran. The Quran arrived and it declared as false all these beliefs and doctrines about woman which man had spread for centuries. It was a very great revolutionary proclamation in the history of man. It stated that it was false that Allah created man and then woman was created from the rib of man. It has already been noted that according to the Quran this concept is wrong, that the beginning of mankind happened as follows, that Allah somehow created a man or a couple, and then from them the process of reproduction of mankind proceeded. The Quran states that life, traversing through its various evolutionary stages, reached up to the state of a human being. Its beginning was from a life cell. There was no differentiation of male or female in this. Then it became divided into two new parts, one part a spermatozoon possessing male traits and the other an ovum possessing female traits. By the coming together of these two the process of reproduction proceeded forward through birth. The birth of a human child, girl or boy, also takes place through this process, so it is wrong to say that man was made first and woman emerged from his rib. The Quran states, "Who created you from a single life cell and from it created, of like nature, its mate. For man a woman and for woman a man. And from them twain, has spread abroad a multitude of men and women." 4. 1. After this the Quran also contradicted the belief that woman was the cause of the error of Adam in paradise. It stated that man and woman both have equal potential within them to follow the right path or to leave it. They can both commit errors. 2. 36. Therefore, it is wrong to think that woman is responsible for the sins of the world and man is completely innocent. 17.5 Meaning of Zawj. Pair. Then the Quran stated that for the program of reproduction it was proposed that this process moves forward with the mutual cooperation of man and woman. Neither man alone can support this, nor woman alone. The things which come together in this way to fulfill a certain purpose are called zawj. Complementary of one another. In this respect man and woman are zawj of one another. Between the two some traits are given to man while woman is deprived of these, and some are given to woman which man is not in possession of. Therefore, each one surpasses the other. Allah has so created you that one excels the other in certain respects. 4. 34. Pay attention to this, that the Quran has not said that man has been given superiority over woman or that woman has preference over man, Because of certain traits man surpasses woman. And due to other traits woman surpasses man, and the program of nature is fulfilled through the companionship of both. These different traits of man and woman are only biological. As far as human potentials are concerned, both possess these equally. For thousands of years man kept woman deprived of those opportunities and means through which her human potentials could have been developed, and then this fatwa was proclaimed that woman is simply the possessor of faulty intellect. This is wrong. Provide them with equal opportunities and then see how both progress side by side in the cavalcade of life. 17.6 Equal potentials. The Quran has proclaimed, for Muslim men and women, for believing men and women, for devout men and women, for true men and women, for men and women who are patient and constant, for men and women who humble themselves, for men and women who give in charity, for men and women who fast, practice self-restraint, for men and women who guard their chastity, and for men and women who engage much in Allah's remembrance, following His laws. For them has Allah prepared protection and great reward. 33. 35. If men have the potentiality to develop their personality by harmonizing themselves with the laws of Allah, then women also have a similar potentiality. If men can be members of a movement that aims at world peace according to the inviolable laws of Allah, then women also can participate in it by becoming its members. If men can restrain their capabilities so as to develop them within the laws of Allah, so can women. If men can vindicate the truth of their conviction through its practical implementation in life, so can women vindicate it. If men can remain steadfast on the path they have chosen, so can women. If men have an inexhaustible capacity to be more and more in harmony with the laws of Allah once they are set on this path, so have women this inexhaustible capacity. If men can sacrifice lower values for higher values, so can women. If men can exercise control and do not violate the limitations set on them, so can women. If men can keep their sexual urge within the desired limits, so can women. If men can understand the laws of Allah and focus their activities in life on them, so can women. Now, if both men and women have equal capacities and potentialities, their results should also be the same for both of them. Hence, both will enjoy protection and security and all other such benefits and joy that will come out of their deeds. In another verse, the Quran has also stated another trait of Momin women as being those who travel. 66. 5. Similar to men who travel. 9. 112. Reflect on these explanations of the Quran. And then see concerning which part of life is it that it has stated that men have the potential for it but woman does not. Man can do such and such but woman cannot do it. Man can become all this but woman cannot. This is why the Quran has declared that the righteous deeds of both men and women will be worthy of equal recompense. If any do deeds of righteousness, be they male or female, and have iman, they will enter paradise and not the least injustice will be done to them. 4. 124. So much so that the Quran has also stated that whatever man will earn it will be his share, whatever a woman earns it will be her share. To men is allotted what they earn, and to women what they earn. 4. 32. 17.7 Affairs of State and Woman. It is generally said that women cannot participate in the affairs of a state. But this belief is also based on ignorance of the Quranic teaching. The Quran has declared that the basic duty of the Islamic State is to promote good and forbid evil. Those who, if we establish them in the land, establish salat and give zakat, enjoin the right and forbid wrong. 22. 41. About this duty it is stated, the believers, men and women, are protectors one of another. They enjoin what is just, and forbid what is evil. 9. 71. From this it is clear that women are equal partners in the performance of duties in state affairs. In addition to these explanations, it is important to bear in mind one fundamental principle, that the basic teaching of the Quran is that there can be no differentiation between one human being and another by birth. The whole edifice of its teaching is raised on this very foundation. This is the reason why it does not differentiate between a Brahmin and a Shudar classes in the Hindu religion. In relation to birth, it does not differentiate between a child who is born in a hut and one born in a palace. Keeping this principle in mind, see that if in some individual's house a boy is born and a girl is born, in this respect there is no magic trick of the boy because of which he became a boy, and neither is there some crime of the girl's that she is born a girl. Now if we consider this principle as being true, that a girl is inferior to a boy, or a woman to a man, this means that due to the criterion of birth we consider one set of human beings as being superior and another set as being inferior. And this differentiation between them is such that the inferior group, i.e., women, can never eradicate it, though she may try a million times. Now consider how, as a result of this wrong belief that man attains superiority over woman due to just being a man, the most eminent teaching of Islam is left torn from the very root of its foundations. This belief is of our own creation. The teaching of the Quran remains pure from this. 17.8 Importance of family life. An animal child is only in need of physical nourishment from the mother, or from the mother and father. It is not in need of any training. After physical nourishment, it becomes that which it was created to become. The offspring of a goat is a goat, the offspring of a lion is a lion. But, in order for a human child to become a human being, other than physical nourishment, training is also required. This training can take place in the environment of a home. This is that necessity for which the Quran gives great importance to family life. When examined closely, this reality becomes patently obvious that, what we term a society, is actually the expanded form of a home. In the morning, homes expand and become a society, and at night the society shrinks and becomes confined to the homes. In the Arabic language, the word Ummah is used for a nation. The Quran has also used the word Ummah for the type of nation which it desires to shape. Jamaat of Mu'minin. The word Ummah is derived from which means mother. This means that the growth of the Ummah takes place in the lap of the mother. This is the reason it wishes to make the home as a model for this society, which it terms as an earthly paradise for the mankind. 17.9 Harmony in intellect and understanding. The fundamental condition to make a home a paradise is to have complete harmony of intellect and understanding, ideas, and beliefs between husband and wife. The Quran states in clear words that to marry while holding conflicting beliefs about life is to make the home a hell. In contrast, the home becomes a paradise when there are compatible beliefs and outlook. It states, "Do not marry unbelieving women, until they have Iman. A slave woman who has Iman is better than an unbelieving woman, even though she allure you. Nor marry unbelievers until they have Iman. A man-slave who has Iman is better than an unbeliever, even though he allure you. Unbelievers do but beckon you to the fire. But Allah beckons by His grace to paradise and protection, and makes His signs clear to mankind, that they may receive admonition." 221. For this it is necessary that a woman and a man should have full freedom and the right to select their partner. This is why the Quran tells men to marry women of their choice. 3. And about women it states that men should not become their masters forcefully. 19. Under these terms the question of marriage between a minor boy or a minor girl does not even arise. Hence, according to the Quran, nikah is the name given to the mutual agreement, with full willingness according to their personal choice, between an adult man and an adult woman, that having become companions of each other, they will live a life in peace and love, in mutual harmony and with one outlook. 21. And in this way, they will produce in society that kind of delightful environment in which future generations will be brought up possessing a balanced personality and will become the embodiment of the eminence of humanity. 17.10 Division of labor. Because, as has already been stated earlier, in the unit of a home according to the principle of the division of work, the major share of a woman's time is devoted to the care and training of children. The fundamental responsibility for earning a means of subsistence falls therefore on men. Regarding this, the Quran states, men are responsible for the maintenance of women in the home. 4:34. It should be made clear that this does not mean that a woman cannot even earn any subsistence. As has been noted earlier, the Quran has stated in clear words that a woman is the owner of whatever she earns. 4:32. The reason why men are declared to be responsible for providing for the needs of life of women is that since in the management of home affairs the larger part of a woman's time is spent in the care and bringing up of the children and man is free from this, it is therefore fundamentally the responsibility of men to earn subsistence. As far as the responsibilities and rights of a husband and wife are concerned, the Quran has given both equal status. In this regard, it has specified such a principle which in its brevity and succinctness is unparalleled. It states, and women shall have rights similar to the rights against them, according to what is equitable. 228. According to procedure and law, women have similar levels of responsibilities proportionate to their rights. And as for the mutual relationships between a husband and wife, for this too the Quran has specified a similar concise and succinct principle. They are raiment for you and you are raiment for them. 187. You are for each other like the apparel you wear, which has such an intimate and direct relation to the body that no other thing can come between them. 17.11 Divorce. Talaq. The Quran has called nikah the mutual agreement which takes place as a result of the heartfelt agreement between the two parties. 4:21. It emphasizes that a proper appraisal should be carried out prior to this agreement and it should be assured in every way possible that this agreement will last for the duration of life with success and harmony. After this it gives such instructions according to which this agreement becomes ever stronger in the marital life of husband and wife. But despite this, the Quran does not hide from the realities of life. It accepts that despite this amount of care and emphasis, such a situation can occur where differences arise between the parties. In such an eventuality, it makes it the responsibility of society that it should try its utmost to erase their mutual differences. For this it suggests that a consulting board should be constituted, comprising of representatives of both parties, which will make every effort possible to try and resolve their differences. 4:35. But if their efforts are fruitless and they reach the conclusion that no possibility remains of reconciliation between this husband and wife, then this agreement of nikah of theirs should be dissolved. This is called talaq. 17.12 Polygamy. Because the Quran declares the harmony of thought and outlook between husband and wife and the sweetness of love and peace in their relations as a basic condition. Therefore the question of a second wife in the presence of a wife does not even arise in this. The general principle of Islam is monogamy. But in this regard, it does not ignore certain exceptional circumstances. It says that due to certain adverse situations, for example, as a result of war, such emergency circumstances can arise in which the numbers of widows and the orphan children with them and adult women become so great that, according to the principle of monogamy, there is no possibility of their getting married. In such a situation, it is obvious that sexual promiscuity can spread within society. The Quran states that in order to take control over such emergency circumstances, there can be an exception in the principle of monogamy. It states, and if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with the orphans, then marry women of your choice, 2, or 3 or 4, as the situation demands. But if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with them, then marry only 1. 4. 3. Bear in mind that those Muslim women who become widows or become of marriageable age and for whose marital life there are no Muslim men available, become an important problem for society. This is because a Muslim woman can never marry a non-Muslim man, she has to marry within Muslims, and because of the principle of monogamy this is not possible. Due to this abnormal circumstance, the Quran has put forward this solution. But the basic condition for this is that justice be done to these new arrivals and their orphan children, and if this is not possible, then there is no permission for even this solution. 4. 3. The basic requirement for justice will be that there should be willingness for this from the first wife. And if someone has no first wife, then between the women that he wishes to marry. If they are not willing for this, then justice will be impossible. The home will become hell. This is the one time only and the sole verse in the Quran regarding having more than one wife. Consequently, apart from these circumstances there is no permission for more than one wife under any other condition or for any other reason. 17.131 Important reality. In relation to polygamy, it is necessary to keep one important reality in mind. Within our homes there are present grown-up sisters, daughters, and other such female relatives with whom nikah is not permitted. We interact day and night with these adult girls and women, but not even the remotest idea of any sexual urge arises in the hearts of these men and women. In this environment life passes in complete security and chastity. Within this sphere adult girls and unmarried women have complete trust in these boys and men that there is no kind of danger from them. Why is this? Because this is that sphere in which nikah is not permitted with each other. Now it is obvious that the degree of sexual security and peace prevailing within a society will be according to the extent to which the sphere is widespread. And women will feel an equivalent degree of peace and trust from men. When monogamy has been accepted as a principle. Then when one man marries some woman, then after this, in the presence of his wife, this man's nikah becomes declared as illegitimate for every other woman in the world. Now see from this how wide that sphere has become within which the environment of sexual peace and security becomes the norm, and in which women have complete trust and freedom from fear of men. 213. Be aware that we are discussing that society in which fornication is declared as haram. In this society, after the marriage of a man, neither can a woman look at this man with the thought that he should marry me, nor can the man cast an eye on another woman with the thought that he should marry her. Furthermore, see also how contented a life this man's wife will spend. She knows that in her presence her husband can never even have a passing thought about any other woman that he will marry her, nor can he develop an illicit relationship with anyone. But if in a society there is complete freedom regarding polygamy, then as a result this whole environment of peace and tranquility will become a hell of fearful heartbeats and trepidation and an inferno of doubts and suspicions. The wife of this man will be in a constant state of apprehension that who knows when he will bring along another wife. Whichever woman wishes, she can begin to attempt to attract this man to herself so that he can make her his wife. Man can look at every other woman with desire because to bring this woman into his nikah is neither a crime nor a sin. Have you contemplated how with this difference what the map of a society will change into and become? By forbidding zina and by establishing monogamy as a principle, the Quran has uprooted all those evils from society due to which woman remains apprehensive of every man. And from this created a paradise-like environment of peace and tranquility. But along with this, recognizing the need for polygamy in special circumstances, also protected society from those devastations in which the West is so gravely immersed. 17.14 Slaves and concubines. At the time of the revelation of the Quran, slavery prevailed in nearly every nation of the world. We have seen that the fundamental teaching of the Quran is based on respect and equality of humanity. It declares this to be a permanent value which cannot be transgressed in any circumstance. It is obvious that in these circumstances how could it have declared this curse which was burning and destroying humanity, like slavery, to be legitimate and permissible. In this era, prisoners of war were made slaves and their women, concubines. The Quran gave the command regarding prisoners of war that they will in any case be released. Thereafter is the time for these prisoners of war, either letting them go as generosity or through ransom. 47. 4. While they remain with you as prisoners, they will be treated humanely, because the Jamaat of Mu'minin can never do anything in any circumstance which is contrary to the permanent value of respect for humanity. In this way, the Quran closed the door on slavery. But in the society of the Arabs in those days, slaves and concubines were plentiful. If the Quran had given the command to turn them out immediately, the structure of the society would have become chaotic. This is why it gave such orders and commands, due to which all the slaves and concubines could become gradually either free or assimilated as members of Muslim households, wherever in the Quran or whom their right hands possess. 23. 6. Is mentioned. This refers to those slaves and concubines who were present in the society at that time. Therefore, after they have become free or have become absorbed within the society, according to the Quran, there is then no question even arising of slaves or concubines. This concept is against the fundamental teaching of the Quran. 17.15 The purpose of sex. Regarding the mutual relations between man and woman, the greatest revolutionary concept that the Quran presents is about sex. There is no doubt that man says that the sexual relationship between husband and wife is for the sake of producing progeny. But it is an undeniable truth that due to this relation the foremost aim is satisfaction of sexual pleasure. Man has viewed and made woman a means to the satisfaction of his sexual desire, and from marriage the objective is understood to be the gain of legal and social legitimization of this sexual desire. We do not need to go into the details here of the degree to which devastations have been produced in the history of mankind due to this concept. That the objective of sexual relations is to satisfy personal desire. It is the consequence of this, that like wealth and land, woman has also become a problem for man, and will continue to remain so till man establishes a correct concept about sex. The Quran has presented the correct view about sex. If you look at animals, the purpose of sex is reproduction. It is not the satisfaction of sexual pleasure. As with other matters, nature has retained control of this in its own hands. Sexual desire only arises in animals when, according to the established program of nature, the time for mating and conception occurs. Once this aim is achieved, this emotion falls silent in both the male and the female. They have neither control over this, that whenever they wish they can make it come alive again of their own accord, nor control over this, that after its arousal, they do not fulfill it. As with animals, in humans too the means for reproduction is sexual mating. This means that sexual relations are associated with the physical life of man. But as we have already seen, the difference between man and other animals is this, that animals have been created constrained by nature, while man possesses free will and intention. A man and a dog both know that poison can be a reason for their demise. A dog will never eat poison of its own accord because it has never been given the ability to choose to eat what it wishes and to refrain from that which it wishes. But man can eat poison of his own accord and commit suicide. Man has been given a similar choice in the matter of sexual mating. Man being a holder of free will and intent is a reason for him to receive 1,000 benefits. But on the other hand, this very freedom to choose of his is also the reason for his destruction and ruin. The limitation of a dog, in that he cannot choose to eat poison, protects it from death, but because of this he also remains deprived of the countless benefits of poison. If man utilizes poison according to the law of nature, he can reap many benefits from it, but if he uses it contrary to the law of nature, poison becomes the reason for his demise. In other words, the correct use of human choice and intent is a source of mercy in his favor, and its incorrect use a cause for death. 17.16 Birth control. Regarding the issue of sexual mating, by creating animals to be devoid of free choice and to be constrained, nature has retained control over their reproduction. They are obliged to give birth to their young according to the program of nature. They can neither cause a reduction in this, nor an increase. In the period that nature has fixed for them, they can neither desist from mating. Period of conception. Nor can they mate at times other than this period. But nature has given man freedom in this domain also, that he can, according to his own choice, exercise control over his reproductive faculty himself. In other words, he can produce as many children as he wishes but should not feel any obligation to have any more than this. Though choice was given to him for this purpose, he considered sexual mating to be a means to obtain hedonistic pleasure for himself. Then, my goodness, what destructions were caused in that process. He made sex into such a problem for himself that he cannot comprehend any solution for it. No better example can be presented to correctly evaluate what kinds of difficulties the wrong use of human choice and intent creates for man than this. Firstly, through his erroneous vision and through the hands of his emotive desires, he created a problem for himself out of such a simple program of nature, and then in search of a solution to this problem, he created such tangled convolutions that, like the prince in a fairy tale, he remained lost forever in this maze. So much so, that Freud and his co-thinkers have even said that sex is that focal point around which the whole world of men revolves. And that the mutual attraction of mother and child and even the relation of this is the creation of his own mind. God and man is dependent on the result of these sexual urges. 17.17 Sexual urge is not a physical need. In this connection, the belief was created that the sexual urge is a physical need like food and water, whose satisfaction is essential. If this need is suppressed, then 1,000 ills and psychological diseases are born as a result. And the greater the extent to which opportunity is given for it to play freely, the greater the degree to which the knots of human consciousness are untangled, even though this fact is very clear that the sexual urge is not physical like hunger and thirst. For example, if you are sitting engrossed in some work, then when the body needs water, the feeling of thirst will arise. Initially this feeling will be slight, but if you do not quench your thirst, then it will increase in intensity and gradually will become so great that you will find it difficult to continue to work. If still you do not drink water, you will become ill and eventually your demise will occur. This is called physical need. Contrary to this, the state of the sexual urge is that it never emerges until you cause it to arise by your own thinking. It has to be triggered to emerge through thoughts, and it can become cold through thoughts. And it is also not correct that if this need is not satisfied that man becomes ill and eventually his death occurs. How many people are there who have not satisfied this need all their life, and despite this there has been no harmful effect on their health? Never mind a harmful effect occurring, their health becomes even better. Its harmful effect results when you, through your thoughts, cause these urges to repeatedly arise. If your thoughts do not go in this direction, then there is a pleasant effect on human health and thought process as a result. In its support, the evidences of eminent physicians and experts in psychology and sexuality are available, and the greatest evidence is man's own experience. Whoever wishes can try it, the condition being to not allow your thoughts to approach in this direction. 17.18 This is a psychological urge. Therefore, the sexual urge is not a physical necessity, this is a psychological urge which man gives rise to himself. If he causes it to arise according to his own program for the production of his progeny, then its consequence is beneficial both for him and for mankind. And if he causes it to arise purely for his hedonistic pleasure and provides the means for its fulfillment, both individual and collective ruins result from this. And man never considers how great a price he is paying for such a temporary pleasure. The purpose of food is to provide nourishment for the body. Its taste is a secondary issue. The individual who eats purely for the sake of taste and thus keeps ruining his health, what can you call him other than insane? Similarly, the purpose of sexual relations is for reproduction, pleasure is a secondary issue. The person who approaches sexual relations only for the sake of pleasure, and in this way, having created thousands of complications for himself and for mankind and making society a hell, what doubt can there be in his insanity either? But what can be the solution to the fact that man, having adopted the wrong approach for thousands of years, upholds this madness to be a wonderful wisdom, and is also reaping its consequence. The Quran has presented the solution to this most difficult and self-created problem of man in just a few words, when it states, "Your wives are as a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how you will." 223. Here the example of a field has made the matter absolutely clear. The farmer only sows his field when he intends to grow a crop. He does not plow the field or sow seeds merely for the sake of pleasure. Therefore, the purpose of sexual mating of a husband and wife is to produce children, not to seek pleasure. Sexual mating should only be at a time when the aim is to produce children, and offspring should be produced according to your own program. As for the sexual urge being unlike a physical need, the Quran has also made this clear. In the matter of things to eat and drink, it has made some things haram. But along with that, it has also stated that if such a situation arises that nothing else is available to eat and your condition becomes unbearable, then at that stage it is permitted for you to eat haram things according to your need. 173. Contrary to this, regarding the matter of sexual urge, it is stated, "Let those who find not the wherewithal for marriage keep themselves chaste, until Allah gives them means." 24:33. This means the Quran has recognized the unbearable condition in the case of food and drink but has not accepted it in the case of the sexual urge. This is because, as stated earlier, the sexual urge is not a physical necessity. It is merely a psychological urge, the emergence of which is dependent on the thoughts of man himself. And regarding the matter which is a choice of man himself, what question is there of this being unbearable? This is the reason that the Quran has declared fornication to be haram and has not given permission for it under any circumstances. 17.19 Fornication is haram. According to the Quran, this is a grave crime for which the punishment is severe. In Western society, if an adult couple, unmarried, establishes sexual relations with mutual agreement without nikah, it is not considered to be a crime. But the Quran declares this also to be a crime, because the leading motive for fornication is the seeking of pleasure, not the birth of children. In the West, if the girl becomes pregnant in this situation and that couple get married after this, then this child becomes legitimate in the eyes of the law, because, according to them, in such a situation the purpose of the relationship no longer remains as the seeking of pleasure alone, the birth of children also comes into this. In other words, according to them also there is a difference in merely having sexual relations for the sake of pleasure and in the relationship which results in children. The Quran calls this fornication also, because the purpose in this was in reality the seeking of pleasure. This was merely an accident due to which pregnancy occurred. According to the Quran, the meaning of nikah is such a contract according to which a couple make an agreement to spend a life together of mutual companionship. In this companionship, the nourishment of such offspring also enters into it, who as a result of righteous training, become eligible for the eminence of humanity. Such a relationship in which the seminal fluid is merely poured away, is declared to be against the purpose of nikah by the Quran. Provided you seek them in marriage with gifts from your possessions, desiring chastity not lust. 4:24. 17.20 Family planning. The world is presently facing a problem on such a scale which, as a result of its importance, is not in any way less dangerous than the atomic bomb. The problem is that the population of the world is increasing so rapidly that the fear is that, after a period of time, the productivity of the earth will not be sufficient to feed it. The various governments of the world are also doing a lot to increase production, but the assessment is that the rate of increase in production will not be able to keep pace with the growth in population. In order to counter this danger, it has been thought that this unchecked increase in population should be halted. For this purpose, contraceptive medicines and instruments are being invented and adult women and men are being enticed to use them. But these measures so far are not successful. Firstly, these are not effective in all situations, and secondly, there is a great deal of expense associated with them. Then the medical community has not reached any definite conclusions regarding the long-term effects and consequences of these, because of which there is a lot being said both in their favor and against them. All this is happening, and alongside it, the population is continually increasing. This question has created a tricky issue for the intellectuals and thinkers of the world. But have you noticed what the fundamental reason for this problem is? This belief about sexual relations that its purpose is to seek pleasure. Both those who offer contraceptive measures and those who take them, desire that sexual pleasure should be acquired through sexual relations, but that children should not be born. Until man brings about a change in this erroneous belief of his, a satisfactory solution to this problem will never be found, i.e. this change that sexual relations should indeed only take place when the objective is to produce children. If this ideology is adopted, then not only will a satisfactory solution be found to the problem of overpopulation, but many other issues about women will also be resolved. Since this wrong belief about sexual relations is ongoing for centuries, it looks apparently difficult to bring about a change in it. But it is not impossible. What ideology is there in which change cannot be wrought through correct education and training? Even in this day and age, in every nation and tribe, you will find some sort of restriction imposed on sexual relations which is being followed unconsciously. For example, there cannot be a marital relationship between brother and sister, or that it is not right for a husband and wife to have sexual relations during menstruation. These constraints are being followed unconsciously because these are included in the education and training of children. Similarly, if this doctrine is also included in education and training that sexual relations are only for procreation, then after a few generations this boundary will also be followed unconsciously. This is particularly so because, as already noted, the sexual urge only emerges through thoughts. Therefore, to bring about change or improvement in any ideology related to sex, it is necessary to bring about change and improvement in thinking. 17.21 Need for correct education. In order to produce this kind of change through education and training, it is also essential that such an environment is created in society due to which the thoughts of the youth are not automatically drawn towards sex. The result of the prevailing wrong belief about sex is that the whole environment remains constantly loaded with such germs which serve as great provocations in arousing sexual urges, in women. The motive for self-objectification, and for every type of new method and technique, and all kinds of opportunities and functions. Blatant sexual literature and cinema films, provocative love songs, and above everything, this concept about life itself, that human life is merely a physical life. There is no level above the animal level, and nor are there any such permanent values the protection of which is the reason for human eminence. The collective impact of all these different elements is that the youth do not even retain control over their thoughts. And when there is no control over thoughts, then what control can there be over sex? 17.22 Quranic concepts. The Quran proposes such a comprehensive program, by acting according to which the right change takes place in the beliefs, concepts, thinking and perception of man, and the environment of the society remains pure and clean from these germs which become the reason for leading to wrong motives under the influence of emotions. For example, it presents a fundamental concept about life that it is not at an animal level. It is higher than this at a human level, and its development occurs by protecting those permanent values which have been bestowed through revelation. The protection of chastity is also a permanent value. It removes from the heart of woman the wrong assumption that she has been created for man, and that her only purpose in life is to somehow or other remain attractive in the eyes of man. It tells her that she has a separate, individual, and unique status, and that the ultimate aim of her life is the same as that of a man. As far as being a human being, there is no difference between a man and a woman. The only difference between them is in physical traits, which are necessary for a woman in relation to the procreation of the human race. A woman can develop her human potentials in the same way as a man can, and after carrying out those duties which nature has specified for her, she can work alongside man in every field of life. When this incorrect belief is dispelled from her thinking that her purpose in life is to remain attractive in the eyes of man, then the lowly emotion of displaying her beauty will also leave her heart, and by the departure of this emotion hundreds of knots will be freed. The Quran does not wish to confine woman within the four walls of the home. It reforms this wrong concept which becomes the motive in her for displaying beauty. Rather than becoming the toy of man, it teaches her to become his companion in the journey of life. 17.23 Adornment and Beautification. It should be made clear that the Quran does not declare adornment and beautification, ornamentation, and decoration, as being haram. Contrary to this, it clearly proclaims, "Say, who has forbidden the beautiful gifts of Allah which He has produced for His servants, and the things, clean and pure, which He has provided for sustenance?" 7.32. The finer arts automatically come within the domain of adornment and beautification because they are the means by which to demonstrate and manifest the beauty of the universe. The Quran forbids woman from self-objectification on those occasions where she may become the instrument for provoking thoughts of sexual urge among men. 24. 30-31, 33. 33. The Quran removes this wrong belief from the heart of man that the aim of the sexual relation is to satisfy lust. It tells him that its aim is only for procreation, therefore other than for the production of offspring, the sexual relation is against the will of nature. And in order to have children, the legitimate form of sexual relations is via organized marriage. It suggests such a program of education and training for children through which their human potentials are developed. The higher purpose of human life remains plainly in front of them, and they do not fall to the lower level of an animal existence. It does not allow the environment to be contaminated with such germs which lead to the creation of sexual perversion. The Quran declares the protection of chastity to be a permanent value, and its transgression a crime, for which there is a severe punishment. Western thinkers and researchers are themselves reaching this conclusion after their own investigation and research, that the safeguarding of chastity is extremely important for human evolution. In this connection, we consider it sufficient to note here briefly the summary of the research by Dr. J. D. Unwin of Cambridge University. He studied the sexual practices of 80 primitive tribes living in various parts of the world, and after this he studied 16 societies of civilized nations. He published the outcome of this research with great care in his book, Sex and Culture. He writes in the preface of this book, briefly stated, "My final conclusion is that the cultural behavior of any human society depends, first, on the inherent nature of the human organism, and, secondly, on the state of energy into which, as the result of its sexual regulations, the society has arrived." The conclusions he reaches after studying the social culture of 80 tribes are as follows. That group was on the lowest level of culture in which sexual intercourse without marriage was openly permitted. The tribe in which there were some restrictions on sexual relations without marriage were on the middle level. And at the highest level were only those tribes which insisted on premarital chastity. Summing up the results of his investigation, he says, "I submit, therefore, that the limitation of the sexual opportunity must be regarded as the cause of the cultural advance. Again, no society can display social energy unless a new generation inherits a social system under which sexual opportunity is reduced to a minimum. If such a system be preserved, richer and yet richer tradition will be created, refined by human entropy." Unwin's concluding remarks deserve careful consideration. If a vigorous society wishes to display its productive energy for a long time, and even forever, it must recreate itself. I think, first by placing the sexes on a level of complete legal equality, and then by altering its economic and social organization in such a way as to render both possible and tolerable for sexual opportunity to remain at a minimum for an extended period, and even forever. In such a case the face of the society will be set in the direction of the cultural process. Its inherited tradition would be continually enriched, it would achieve a higher culture than has yet been attained. By the action of human entropy its tradition would be augmented and refined in a manner which surpasses our present understanding. The Quran, by giving woman rightful equal status, lays such limits on sexual relations due to which human society, journeying through evolutionary stages, keeps reaching ever higher levels. 83:19.